Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of the Empower Emmy in One podcast. I'm super excited to be back, and today I have with me Teresa, who is a lovely friend. We connected, about over a year ago now, obviously over health, as these things always happen. And it's been really interesting to get to know her journey, which is not directly Emmy and One related, but there's a lot of correlation, a lot of similarity with what she's been through and with what I've been through myself. And I know a lot of other patients have. So I've decided to invite her on to get to share. She's been through some pretty exciting stuff recently, and I'm hoping that she'll take us through her journey and maybe give us a little bit of inspiration or share some nuggets of wisdom with us. So, hi, Teresa.
Hello, how are you?
I am well, thank you. It is so lovely to have you on and looking bright and beautiful in your lovely setup. As I was saying before, I'm very jealous, and I just have a weird plant behind me that's dying, so I really need to attend to that.
Can't see the plant that's dying, but it looks like a fireplace behind you. Oh, okay, now I see it.
A fireplace with a very unhappy plant. So to sing that I preach about looking after ourselves and our health, I should probably look after my plant too. Anyway, I normally start off by asking, tell us about your journey, your experience with health, where it is you've got to now, and kind of where it was that things all started or kind of kicked off for you.
Oh gosh, okay. So my diagnosis was rheumatoid arthritis. And that was, I get a little bit lost in the COVID realms. So there's before COVID, and then there's like a kind of a blur period of COVID, then there's after COVID. So it happened in the blur of COVID, but I can kind of see signals of my health not being very great coming up to COVID. It's in just burnout quite a lot, chronically getting tired, overworked, those sort of things, but just kept going. And then in lockdown, to cut it really short, I started to notice that my foot was hurting, like a toe, but I had bumped it. So I was going down the route of the medical route of having an x-ray to see what was wrong with my foot. But then both feet started hurting, and then they couldn't explain that. And there wasn't really anything with my toe that could justify it. And then it was literally 2 years to the half term that's just gone, the October half term. My kids come and ran and got into bed with me, and my husband walked in with my coffee. And I just remember waking up and looking at my hands, and my hands hurting, and being like, what is this? And my husband was going, are you okay? I was like, my hands hurt. Like my feet were hurting. I barely were able to walk on them at that point, but then my hands were hurting. And then that was my big flag, like something's really not right. I can't put it down to a knock of my foot or walking funny because of one foot. And then that started my because then it came quite quickly from them hurting. Then my knuckles started to go like blue and purple, and swelling come in very, very quickly. So it went from being handstands, yoga girl for like 20 years, very mobile, very physically, should we say, mobile and well, to suddenly no yoga. My feet were gone, my hands were gone, and my hands started to curl in. So the doctor's route come along, and the MRIs and the bloods, and all showed that yes, that you have autoimmune of rheumatoid arthritis. And I remember the first specialist I saw, a lady, it was still questioning at that point. I was going for the MRIs, and she was like, she knew I didn't want to go down the route of the medication. And she wasn't too bad. She was like, well, look, it's going to take a couple of months to get all this in. Go, try your way. When all the information had come in that, yes, we're supporting, you definitely have rheumatoid arthritis, the specialist I saw was not nice at all, like really not nice. And he was very matter of fact, and I get it, that's his place. His matter of fact, it's like the MRI say this, the blood says this, your hands are curling in, your joints are deteriorating, it's attacking your joints quite fast. We need to get you on steroids and methotrexate. But I'd done a lot of research before that appointment. I'd studied into the drugs and everything. I wanted to be very aware of what I was going into. And there was just this feeling of like, it didn't feel right to go down the medication route. It was like, you're not going to solve nothing. It wasn't like these medications were going to heal it and it was going to go away. It was more about maintaining it and trying to find where it would weaken my immune system down to stop my immune system from attacking which would for me would be joints. But then that would bring in the fact that I would get ill and colds. Plus, I would have to take stomach linings for the medication. So that was flaring up. That's not going to be very good for me. And there was just this voice. And the thing is, 20 years ago, how I come into yoga was I had a breakdown at the age of like 19, 20. And I remember coming out of, after about 4 or 5 months of that, of like in and out of doctors, like trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Because 20 years ago, there wasn't anxiety and depression like now. It was just you were sad or a bit of a worrier. And I come out at the same thing. I had all these prescriptions for antidepressants, sickness tablets, all these things. And as I walked out the doctor's surgery, I heard in my head, because I was thinking, what am I going to do? And this little voice, literally like it stood next to me, said, yoga's good for breathing. And I turned and I remember thinking, there was no one there. But I remember thinking yoga, because yoga wasn't about 20 years ago. There was like one class in the whole of Peterborough with one teacher. That was it. Like nobody knew what yoga was, and I had to find it in the Yellow Pages. And that led me into the yoga world and healing and going to the anxiety and mental health with women and all of those lovely things that I specialized in. And I knew from my first class that was going to be a pivotal turning point for me. Fast forward 20 years, I'm literally in this room with this specialist and this lady, and he's basically telling me, if you don't take it, this will continue through your body and you will be going down a bad path. We cannot rebuild your joints. It would be operations and replacing. And I was full of fear, but the same feeling was like, there's something that's caused it. Now you have 2 options. You can take the medication and go that route, or you can try and figure out what happened, what's caused this. And I chose that route. So to fast forward a bit more, obviously I went down straight into the diet route. That was the thing on the internet, was leaky gut. So I went into leaky gut realms and did that. And then fast forward 6 months, I'd say I was 50% better. Like the swelling, a lot of it had gone, but I was still in pain quite a lot in the day, and my joints still were like not as flexible. And then I started to look even deeper then, thinking, okay, so the 2 people that I've met that have been in remission from RA, we say remission, they say cured, either one, same thing for me. One was like raw vegan juicing veggie that had done hers and been in remission for 11 years or cured. And the other guy was pretty much carnivore. So like you couldn't get 2 opposites of a diet. And both of these people spent time with me, not a lot, but gave me their time for free, their advice for free. And there's a lot of people out there that wanted to charge me thousands of pounds to work with them for like 7 weeks, like £1,800, and I will cure you of this. But these people were like, we've been there, we know where you're at, look at this. But I was like, your diets are completely different. The only thing that linked the 2 diets was they took out the processed foods. So it'd be sugars and processed foods. But other than that, so I started thinking it's not all diet. And there was a little thing, again, this feeling inside me that knew that it wasn't going to be all diet. Diet plays a part, but it was going to be at such a deeper level. And then the nervous system regularization come in. But what I've done through this, fortunately, and I'm very, very blessed, that before this come in, I'd ended up on a holiday a couple of years before I'd got the diagnosis, on a holiday I would never have gone on and shouldn't have been on. And I ended up on it, and I ended up in a Tai Chi class, because for about a year before I'd had this feeling that I needed to move out the yoga world. Like I loved yoga. It was like I was yoga girl. Had a successful business. I lived it, I breathed it, I studied it. It was just me. But there was something in me shifting, and I desperately was trying to hold on to stay in on the yoga mat and in the yoga world because it was safe and it's what I knew. And when I was at this Tai Chi class, I said to the teacher, like, yeah, I like it, but again, it's all too much movement here, there. I want to go like deeper. I want to go inward. And I want like a meditation that I can move to. And she said, oh, you want Qigong? And I was like, what is that? In all my time of being in this world, I'd never heard of Qigong. And fortunately, that led me down Qigong path. But I was still very much in the yoga world, but kind of toyed in the Qigong and studied it on the side. but I was still really liked the hardcore yoga. So when my diagnosis come in, and obviously I couldn't do planks or balance on my feet, I couldn't stand on my feet for long, like 30 seconds without it being painful. So I started doing the Qigong. But then I started playing with the Qigong and then putting just a little sprinkle of yoga in it. And then I've worked with amazing breathwork teachers in my time and meditation teachers. And so I started to put like the breath work that I've been taught for the vagus nerve. As soon as I started getting the nervous system regularization coming in and mind reprogramming, I started to do that and put somatics with it. So I think about a year into my journey, I started to heal quite quickly. I started to literally, it would have been the 25th of November last year. So we're nearly at a year now that I went, no more yoga. I'm full chi flow girl now. This is my practice daily. It's like a full commitment of letting go of who I was. And this is what's going to heal me. And so went into practicing chi flow every day. And then I found an amazing lady called Brandy Gilmore and her online program, which was really looking at your energies, your programs, like your beliefs, your patterns. And through the slowing down of doing the chi flow every morning, I would start to connect out of my head from, say, like my patterns of perfectionism, of having to, it couldn't just be a yoga teacher. I had to be the most advanced yoga teacher, or I couldn't just be a body worker. I had to specialize in it. There was always that extra level that I would go to. And it was in the practicing of my chi flow. My diet then started to level out. And what I mean by that was the diet realm, it plays a part. And so I will always say when people come to me, like, okay, what do you eat? Because that's the first thing they ask me. What do you eat? But I think sometimes if you can get too strict in these diets, it feeds the programs. If you have a program, if you're more of an A-line personality of perfectionism and needing to get it right, it can add fear into that. And that's what it had done with me. So when I say I started to level my diet out through the more calmer I came with the flow practice and the more mind programming I did, I was able to release that fear. And if it was Easter and I wanted a chocolate egg, then I would eat chocolate egg, or if we were out, I would eat what I wanted to eat when I was out. And that was a really important shift in me healing the RA, because I think when you start to look at deeper levels, you start to look at like my hands. And it was like, what was I holding? What am I grasping? And fast forward to this half term, and I am been completely pain-free, other than like the odd day where my hands probably felt a bit stiffer or my feet felt a bit tender, since 7th of March this year. The 7th of March was the day where I woke up and I was completely pain-free, walked down the stairs, no pain anywhere. And sometimes I'd have days like that, but then it would last 2 or 3 days and then a little bit would come back in. But this went on for a week. And I remember it because it was the day before my daughter's birthday. And then it went on for 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And then I probably had like a little day, and then it just started going longer. And by the June, I was back to doing bodywork massages with my hands, which was a big thing for me because I love my bodywork massages. And the fact that they told me my hands would never they would never go past that sort of angle because my joint was so exploded. But actually my body is re-healing these joints because my hands can do this. And so, yeah, I think it's been a journey. I'm very grateful for this journey because the girl I am now, though I am the same person, is completely different from the girl that I was when I came into this diagnosis, like a lot different. And it's even like the person that I am sort of working towards being, should we say, like it's so much more relaxed, so much more a level of inner safety within me. And I think a lot of it comes down to working on a nervous system level. So that's pretty much where I am now. And I'm back to teaching and school runs and long dog walks and all the things that I took for granted, completely took for granted. And then when obviously your hands and feet are taken out of the situation, that you then start to appreciate doing a 3-mile walk with the dog in the morning, or a school run, taking my daughter to school. I had to wear flip-flops like through all of that winter because my feet wouldn't get in any shoes, even the special shoes, my feet wouldn't go in. So it was those things that I suppose I, to this day, still sometimes take for granted, until I kind of go, oh gosh, it was only last year that actually I couldn't walk.
You have such an inspiring story, and I relate to so much of it. I mean, yeah, in some ways I can't believe it's taken us this long in our lives to meet each other, but I definitely I definitely think we were meant to cross paths at some point. What a rich story and an explanation and everything that's gone. I mean, I've been scribbling down notes here just so you can see, and I don't even know where to start with my questions. I mean, some of the things that I think really I relate to in what you've spoken about. Probably the most poignant moment actually was when you spoke about having realized that diet and whatever you were doing externally might only be half of it, or not even half of it, that there was this other side, to your healing journey and to your health that needed looking at, and that was what I call internal. So that's thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and all of that. And I think that's I haven't talked about that a lot because I haven't yet found someone who's necessarily ventured so far into this kind of element of healing. But what would you say, if someone came to you and they were super interested in the lifestyle stuff, the diet stuff, the food and all of that, but they also knew that there was something internal, it was emotional, there were beliefs and there were thoughts there. How would you recommend that someone balance those two things? Because it's not necessarily easy to do, and it's almost like there are contradictions flying around everywhere. So how would you suggest that someone venture into that kind of that realm?
It's since I got the blood work that come back, and when my rheumatoid factor, my rheumatoid factor, for those of you listening that don't know, was at like 86. Anything over 15 or 20 is flagged up for whether it doesn't necessarily mean rheumatoid arthritis, even though it's rheumatoid factor, but it would flag up for lupus or RA or cancer. It would flag the doctors up enough to know that the body is attacking itself. So you want to be under 15, really. And when I got my bloods back, because as much as I am into energy works and all of these things, I really love the science. And people need science to kind of validate, it's okay if I go, oh, I feel fine, but people are like, but is she? But as soon as you have the blood results to go that I was at a 12, which means that my body is peaceful, it's not attacking nothing. And then people started to go, oh, well, how did you do it? And so in my classes, when people come, I mean, obviously the universe tends to send me people that are RA or chronic fatigue, ME, any of these sort of diagnoses, they tend to come through my door because they're not able, say, to do a yoga class. But they come through, and there's either two levels. There's either the ones that come that are very still on it's diet, and I've come because I want to move, and obviously you've somehow put this into natural remission, so they're curious about it. But you can tell when they are open to it. And I think that for me, the people that tend to come to me all have a little bit of an opening to that we are much more than a physical being. So in the Chinese realm, with in the Qigong realms, they talk about obviously yin and yang, and pretty much everybody I think in the world tends to know what yin and yang is. We would talk at the yang is the physical body that we see, the form. And the yin is the emotions, the energies inside of you. So when we get a yang problem on the physical that we see, feel, we're aware of, they say that 90% of the time it is actually caused by the yang, by the yin energies. Lizzie, are you still there?
I am, yeah.
Oh, it's okay. It's just my screen went a little bit fooey, so I'm just going to put that down. I think it's because my signal out in my studio is a little bit all over the place. So yeah, what I tend to do when they come in is, if they're asking me questions as in directly, how did you do this? I tend to say that it's kind of 30% diet. The movements is also very important. I don't think, for me, in my experience and people I've worked with, sit meditation isn't enough to heal it. And they've got to then be open that all change comes from within you. And I'm always very straight with that, because there's no point me saying, oh, if you go and do this, this is going to heal it, or go and do that, because I think everybody is different. But the one thing that is very in my path of watching people, so say like the vegan diet versus the carnivore diet people, the one thing when you talk to them is that they had to change who they were at an internal level. They had to recognize that they were part of the problem and what was be causing the dis-ease in their body. And I think that that was a huge part. And when people come, I will be very honest and say that it wasn't my husband that caused it. It wasn't this that caused it. It was the way I perceived things. It was the controlling aspect of me. It was the judgment. It was all of these patterns. And when they say to me, okay, Teresa, what do I need to do to, say, put myself more into heading towards remission or healing it? And I always say that the two things that I did was find a practice that you do every day that you thoroughly enjoy. So like, for me, it wouldn't have been yoga. I needed to, for my healing would be to get quiet and soft. And that meant moving very slow. And it meant going so ridiculously slow and getting that stillness within, because you've got to be able to find the calm first. But other people, it might be dance, it might be yoga, but something practice every day that gets you back into your body, that brings you out of your mind. A practice every day that brings you then that calm. And that calm is in like that peaceful calm that you drop into your heart. And then what happens is like this magic happens, that you start to be able to see the difference between your mind and the patterns, and how maybe you've been holding on to stories or grudges about people. Because when you get the practice, whatever your practice is that brings you into your heart, you start to understand that none of that matters anymore. That when you're in that space within your heart holds no grudges. It's not angry about things that happened when you were 12. It's not angry or resentful or controlling. It's just unconditional love. And it's, if you can find a practice that gets you into that space, then that, to me, is when the healing actually really starts to happen. So I always advise them that it might not be chi flow, or it might not be yoga, or it might be something completely different, but find that. Keep diet fairly good, but don't be to the point where it's like restrictive. And then I also do think, I do advise people to sort of obviously pop along, see Brandy Gilmore's online one, because she teaches something that resonated very quickly with me, is that she said, imagine that you've got like, you're angry. Okay, so imagine like, I'm going to use my husband, bless his heart, but imagine that my husband has been amazing with me for like 6 months, but one day he's really made me mad. And so when you've got that energy of anger, when you're angry, you only see the negative. You only see all of the bad about what he has done. He's done this, he's done that. And then the mind might drag something up from like years ago, and go, well, but he also did that and he done that. You cannot mentally talk yourself out of that anger. Okay. It's like, you'll probably go, oh yeah, but he's done that. But then the anger's still there. So you're still going to come back to like what he's done wrong. So what you need to do is shift that energy into, because your thoughts won't change until your energy changes. And so therefore that I understood. And what I started to do with the chi flow practice was, I would say, if I had an emotion like that coming up, I would find the calm, because in my experience with it was, I couldn't go from being angry at him like that to suddenly, oh, loving him and he's the most amazing. There's like a transition from the anger And then you come to the calm. So you've got to find the calm, because when you're in calm, then you can build in peacefulness and happiness and feeling love and gratitude. And then when you're in those energies, then you're able to look at any situation different. So it's kind of changing your energy, which then changes your thoughts, which then enables you to see things much differently, which then enables you to change the patterns of the way you've either been thinking, or release old stories of people, of parent issues, or whatever your issues are. And then once you start to release that, the nervous system, for me, how it goes on scientific level is the nervous system comes down, and then the more safer and calmer you feel. And when your cells are like going, yep, we're good, we're happy, with the environment's nice and balanced, we're not in fight, flight, and attack anymore, that's when the cells then can start to do the healing work.
Incredible. What's incredible, I think, is that you, as you say, received the results that you did, those years ago, with, the medical side of things showing up, the RA in a system, or not even the medical side, it's just there was RA. And you said the way you described it is, you had the kind of the fear of being given the diagnosis, but then this little voice at the same time that said to you, there's something that you can do about this. And that's a really interesting dichotomy. It's one that I've experienced where, on the one hand, if you want to call it the sciencey medical side of things, there is this diagnosis, and there's the evidence and the science and stuff to prove it and back it up. But I also had a little voice inside of me that said something very similar. The details were a little bit different. And I wondered, how have you managed to balance that in your journey? Because as you said, you like the science, you like the evidence, and you like the proof. Had there been points, over the last few years where you've doubted, the energetic side of things, you've doubted the healing because the science contradicts it?
Yeah, gosh, so much, just unbelievably, because sometimes it felt like I would go 2 steps forward and then be knocked back, and then I would go into it was always a pattern of, oh God, let's say, for an example, I'd been kind of going, right, okay, it's all going well, and then the pain would come back in, and I'd go into my head and be like, oh gosh, but what was that? And especially in the food early days, I'd be thinking, oh gosh, was it because I had that bread, or was it because I had a banana, or whatever the thing was? And the amount of times that I had my head in my hands and would just be in distraught, just going, oh, maybe I should just take the medication. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there isn't a root cause. Maybe it is just my genetics, my genes. That was one of the things that the specialist said, is that a lot of the times RA is genetic. Yet there is nobody in my family. They've all got dodgy hearts, but there's no RA. And I used to think, maybe I've got it wrong. And there was one day specifically, we'd gone out to try and find me some shoes to fit my feet so it weren't cold. And my husband, he's an engineer. He is very practical and matter-of-fact kind of way of thinking. And I remember coming out of the shoe shop and I was really down because none of the shoes fitted. Even the really manky, beige-looking granny sandal things didn't fit my feet. And I remember just looking at him, and he was looking at my hands, and my hand was blue and swollen, and he just looked at me, and I could see his sadness. And he said to me, "Are you okay?" And I went, "No, I'm scared. I don't know if what I'm doing, this food stuff's not fully working, and I don't know, and I'm so scared that my future is going to be not with you and the kids doing active things like we've been. It's going to be me sat in a chair, me on medication, me physically there, but not actually there. And I don't know what to do." And he said to me, "Teresa, I don't know what to do. You're stronger than me, because if it was me, I would have took the medication." And he said, "Maybe that is somewhere you want to go." And then the next morning I woke up and I just went, no, next foot forward. What is my next best step? And that was one of the things I kept doing. Was there was this feeling, and now I know that feeling is what I would class as my soul. And that's what I connect to every morning in my practice. Every morning, regardless, it's got to be something really dramatic that's happened in the house for me not to connect to my soul. but to do that, I've got to get quiet. And when I get quiet, I just hear this, it's a different language. Like my mind will always talk to me from a matter of fact, through old scenarios. I call it the Google search, and through old events to try and find an equilibrium to a problem. But my heart has this, it's like a faith and a trust and a wisdom beyond what I can put into words. But that feeling would come back. But my moments of, oh, what am I doing? You know, I've lost so much weight, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. There's nobody around me that can just go, just do this or do that. It was this feeling that used to just go, the next best step, the next best step. And I would pick myself back up and go, okay, this is where I want to go. And something would come up, like would pop up out of the blue. Say like the Brandy Gilmore course. I still to this day don't know how that come up. I don't remember Googling it or searching it. It just one day was just popped up, and I was just resonated from watching her TED talk, and was like, there's something, that feeling again, that feeling of there's something in this. And so then I watched the TED talk, and then I spoke to my husband and went, it's not actually that expensive in the grand scheme of things in this healing modality world where people want to charge thousands and thousands. It wasn't expensive. So I went for it, and it complemented so beautifully from very quickly that I knew from starting to do her work, which was getting my energy up. I was feeling better. I was then thinking better. I was feeling more positive. I was seeing things more. And then finding the calm every day, getting the nervous system with the chi flow. And the chi flow helped me get quiet enough that I could connect with this feeling that I feel more deeply. So instead of me going, oh, what am I doing? Oh, maybe I'll ask that person or that person. I started to build up this trust with, instead of asking what my grandma would think or my friends would think or my husband would think, I started to then go, what does this feel? Because this guides me. And then since then, that would have been the January this year. And mid-January, that would have been when I found Brandy, and I started to put the chi flow together with it. And by, like I said, the 7th of March, which actually is quite a very short period of time, that's when the healing come in. So although the science sometimes plays a part, and it does play a part, absolutely it plays a part. I really wanted the bloods to show what I was physically feeling for confirmation, to soothe my mind, put that in there, or maybe just to support. But I think science goes so far, and then magic comes in after that.
I love that. What a beautiful thing to say. Science comes in, magic comes in after that. I have one final question, because I'm so gutted to have to wrap up. I could speak to you all day. If you could go back, you know, to the moment you received your diagnosis, or, you know, when your flare-up started happening, or when you were hitting burnout, what is the one thing or the one piece of advice, if you could, that you would give yourself based on what you've learned and the journey you've been on so far?
I guess the advice when people contact me online and they go, where do I start? I've got this, I'm bedridden, where do I start? If I could go back to give myself advice 2 years ago to cut out all the stuff, should we say, would be it would be Brandy Gilmore, and it would be to find a practice that moves you physically. So it's got to be a practice that gets you physically, mentally, and when I say emotionally, by your heart, a practice that does all three of them. So whether that be dancing, yoga, chi flow, qigong, something that brings you to that quietness within, that stillness, that calm, that you just can see and feel things so much better. It would be, find that and do that daily. Make sure it is part of your daily practice. And I would get them to go to Brandy Gilmore. I wouldn't really even I would obviously advise with the diet, it would be just tidy it up. You know, it doesn't matter whether you've got a dis-ease or you're healthy as anything. If you're living on takeouts 5 days a week and having chocolate for breakfast, that's going to cause a dis-ease in its own realm. So, but it would be, yeah, find chi flow practice, something similar with that. I find Brandy Gilmore, or somebody that resonates with you, whether it comes to nervous system, like mind reprogramming from an emotional way. That would be cutting out probably about 1.5 years of my work. So yeah, definitely would find that.
I love that. Saving other people time and effort and energy, which is amazing. And one final thing, I can't believe I nearly forgot to ask this. If anyone who's listening back wants to connect with you for any reason, whether that's to try out Chi Flow or just to chat to you about your health or just to get to know you, where can they best find you? Where's easiest to get hold of you?
So I think the easiest ones is Instagram, which is Chi, but Chi is QI, so it's qi.flow.girl. Or my Facebook page is still open. That's Breathe the Body Healer that's my yoga days. I have a website at the moment, but it won't be up until next year. But that's me delaying it. That's because at the moment I'm fairly busy, and part of the new way that I am is that I go slow these days. I don't rush fast forward. So the website will come more next year. But yeah, if they contact me there, if there's anything you want to know, then that's brilliant, and I'm happy to help people with that. And also then if you want to join online classes, or just maybe take one of the classes that you can download, then just see if it's for you and see if it, resonates, and you'll know because you'll feel it, even from listening to this conversation, something will resonate within you. And if it does, then yeah, absolutely reach out.
Super. Well, Teresa, I can't thank you enough for sharing your time, your wisdom. Yeah, as I say, I could have jumped in at 7 different moments across this chat and wanted to, take us off in all different tangents and directions. Unfortunately, we are bound by time, but I really look forward to hopefully, having you back on at some point, and definitely yours is a voice that I think we'll want to have around and keep around us. So thank you very much. And I hope that anyone listening back gets as much from this as I have today just now.
Thank you very much for having me, sweetie.